So let's talk about working with mixed fractions, multiplying and dividing mixed fractions. Before we do that, we want to review again what proper fractions are. When the numerator is less than the denominator, we call it a proper fraction. An improper fraction occurs when the denominator is less than the numerator. So if you have a situation like 3 over 2, that would be an improper fraction. A mixed fraction is a situation where you have like 4 and 2/3. So you have a whole number and then you have a fraction. So that's called a mixed fraction. This is technically, by the way, the same thing as 4 plus 2/3. This will be important later on. The next piece that is critical now and is useful for your homework for the first 12 problems. So, well, number 1 to 12, you're only doing the odds, but the section with number 1 to 12 talks about converting mixed fractions to an improper fraction. So you have a mixed fraction and you want to convert that into an improper fraction. This is very important because sometimes it is helpful to have improper fractions to work out certain types of problems. So if you have 2 and 1/2, if you have 2 1/2 like that, and you want to convert it to an improper fraction, think of it this way. You take this 2 in the denominator, you multiply it by the whole number. So that's 2 times 2, that's 4. And then you add this 1 over here. So it's 2 times 2 plus 1. So that's 4 plus 1, which is 5. And you keep that denominator. So it'll be 5 over 2. So 2 1/2 is the same thing as 5 over 2. You multiply the denominator by that whole number. So that's 2 times 2. And then you add 1. And that's how you get the number that will go in the numerator. That's critical. One of the ways that your book explains this with example 1 is they take like 4 and 7/8 and they went ahead and took the 4 plus 7 over 8, but they basically took the 4, right? This is 4 plus 7 over 8. What they did was they basically changed this so that it had the same denominator, and that happens by multiplying both numerator and denominator by 8. So that's what they did. They basically were adding the fraction. They found a common denominator and added it. But the way I showed you here is sort of a shortcut that gives you the same type of answer, the same answer that you need. It's an actual route that works. It's not a way that you're going to get in trouble for using. So you can use either method. So I'll write methods here, method 1 and method 2. Method 1, it's the same thing we're doing, but in terms of just looking at the problem and working through it quickly. So let's say we have 5 and 1/5. I look at this and I just say 5 times 5 is 25 plus 1, so that's 26 over 5. Somebody would take that and write it this way if you want to do it more systematically. And then you multiply both the numerator by 5 over 5. Why am I doing that? Because I'm trying to have a common denominator between what's on the left and what's on the right. So then this becomes 25 over 5 plus 1 over 5. And that becomes 26 over 5. But notice that I had the same answer right away. And so growing up in Nigeria, we use this method a lot. So keep that in mind as you work through these problems. So that was example 1, talking about that. They went ahead and actually showed my method shortly after that, the quick way to change a mixed fraction to an improper fraction. Then in example 2, they give you more practice again. You could use that approach that I explained. Basically, now it's up to you what approach you want to use. I think it's better to just go with this approach on the left because it works out correctly and is more efficient, especially on the ACT where you don't have as much time to work out the right side. So we have example 3. They go ahead and ask you to convert a mixed fraction to an improper fraction. Even if you have a negative number involved, like this one here, that principle can still work. You have 12 times negative 3, that's negative 36. But then you actually treat then this here with the negative as well. So that would be why you would get negative 41 over 12 for that problem. And they give you that example with negative 2 and 3/5. 5 times 2 is negative 10. But then that in the example, they had negative 10, right? But then minus 3 divided by 5. So notice that this 3 here will get a minus because this minus sort of applies to both of them. So keep that in mind as you work through the problems. Then you need to know how to convert from an improper fraction to a mixed. So we're going from improper fraction to mixed, right? So if you have 3 over 2, for example, that we know is 1 and 1/2. Well, how do we do that? Well, we know 2 goes into 3 one time, right? Remainder 1, and then the denominator stays the same. So you're dividing, you're asking how many times does a number, the denominator, go into the numerator, and what's the remainder? That's what you're asking essentially. So that's how we work out that one for converting from improper fractions to mixed fractions. If you have 25 over 7, for example, how many times does 7 go into 25? 3 times. What's the leftover? 4. So 3 and then 4 over 7. So that's how we do that one. It's a good way to move back and forth. Very important. So that is what they discuss for example 4 and that section around example 4. And you go on and have more examples showing you mixed numbers converting to improper fractions and so on. So now let's discuss multiplying and dividing, right? Multiplying and dividing mixed fractions. Okay, now what do we do about this? Okay, so here's the thing. Here's a very interesting reality. If you're given a mixed fraction, like 2 1/2 times 3 1/3, you are actually better off converting both of those into improper fractions. So convert them to improper, and then use your skills that you learned from fraction multiplication, and then you can convert it back to a mixed fraction at the end. So what do I mean? So 2 1/2, 2 1/2 is 5 over 2, right? And then this is 10 over 3. So I converted this to an improper fraction. I converted this to an improper fraction. I can multiply the numerators here, and I can multiply the denominators. Now I simplify, and I get 25 over 3. This is the answer in improper fraction way, and I can change this now to 8 1/3. I apologize, my marker is struggling to write out there, but I will adjust this later. So this is 8 1/3. Do you see what happened? So let's take it from the top. So first of all, we took each one of these and we converted from from mixed to improper, right? So that's the first step. First step, you convert from mixed to improper. Then the next step was to use your skills from fraction multiplication. And then you simplify, right? And then you convert back to mixed, right? So isn't that interesting? It's kind of like a rocket, and I'm going to use this analogy a few times, but you need something to boost you into a certain altitude, and then it lets go and lets you move on, right? I've never been on a rocket. I'm just giving this example. I've seen a few out there, right? So you basically need something to launch you. So that's what the improper fraction is doing. When you convert to improper, you found a way to launch the problem to where it needs to go so that it's easy to solve it. And then you basically simplify and get to your destination, right? That's how we get the answer that we need. So that's what we do for multiplying mixed fractions. We basically convert them to improper fractions and then work out the details and then simplify. Let me also address the division problem. So if you have a division problem like this, so let's say we have a situation like this, okay? You would change this to an improper fraction. So if we have, in this case, you have 9 times 2, 18. So you have negative 22 over 9. And then you have divided by 3 times 3 is 9 plus 2 is 11. And then you go ahead and multiply. You have to change it to the multiplication, right? 11 goes into 22 2 times. 3 goes into 9 3 times. So the answer is negative 2 over 3. So basically, with this problem, we do the same thing. We convert our mixed fractions to improper fractions. We take our improper fractions. If it's a division problem, we know we have to flip this side, so it becomes 3 over 11. And then we multiply, and then we simplify, and then we can put it back in mixed fractions if we need to, but this ends as a proper fraction. When you have a proper fraction, you don't have to worry about discussions with mixed fractions, right? Because it's a proper fraction. If it was an improper fraction, then it would go, then we would convert it to a mixed fraction. Sorry, my mic apparatus was moving here. But that's what you do for multiplying and dividing mixed fractions. Let me know if you have any questions on it. Otherwise, I would encourage you to do as many problems as you need to master the topic, so you can go from 1 to 75 odd and that will be good practice. Remember, the goal is to spend about an hour on math every day. So if you need to finish off the next day, that's okay. Just keep pressing on gradually. Do a little bit a day, do an hour, and then if you need to come back tomorrow, continue. That's okay. You let me know if you have any questions. Take care and have a wonderful day.